So thank you to all the organizers. It's really wonderful to see such great collaboration and all the sectors coming together, because I think it will be pretty evident when you see my short presentation that if we didn't have the spirit of collaboration, an organization that has 12 employees in Chicago and works in 35 countries wouldn't have a prayer. So we really depend on our partners and our stakeholders in every conceivable way. So I often wrongly assume that people know what food banks are. Food bank, the model was developed in the U.S. in the 1960s, and it's spread across the world in different forms and fashions. But at its fundamental essence, it's a nonprofit organization, typically, very often run by social entrepreneurs that care about issues like hunger and food waste. And it pulls surplus product from the marketplace, things that no longer are commercially saleable, despite everybody's best intentions. It might be close to code product. It might be things that were produced overweight or underweight. It might be promoted materials that are past the promotion date. It might be line extensions that didn't succeed. At the grocery store, I think if you've been to a grocery store lately and have the benefit of cold chain in your grocery store, you can see that as items in the dairy aisle approach code, they're quickly removed from shelves, and those are protein-rich products that food banks increasingly are active in. It could be dented cans, and increasingly, actually, with the amount of produce that doesn't make it to market, they could be produce that's off-spec, which is a huge amount of the produce that the world produces, just never even gets into a retail establishment. Our organization, as I mentioned, is a nonprofit organization, and it's a network. And we look to develop, and then once we develop, scale organizations around the world to benefit from the surplus that's available from the marketplace, and work with vetted social service organizations that are in the business on a retail basis of interacting with people in need. It could be a soup kitchen, it could be a food pantry, it could be food that accompanies training for a social malady, it could be job training, it could be after school programs for kids, it could be an orphanage. Studies have shown that food makes people come to receive their social service training, and when they know there's a meal available, they'll come, and maybe the training will actually help move them to the next stage of their life. As I mentioned, we are in many geographies. This is a very confusing map. I wish I could find a different way to do it, but we're not the only organization that's focused on this, and this is where some of the collaboration comes in. The dark green is where we're active with existing food banks, and we have a color that I'm not able to describe, but it's under the existing food banks tab. It's somewhat of a yellowish, where we're developing countries, and we have a full list in a second. But then there's a wonderful organization that's looked after food banking in Europe, which is a network organization that's been around for over 25 years, known as FEBA. And then in the U.S., of course, Feeding America, which is the food banking organization that grew with food banking in the United States, and that we were actually spun off from about 9 years ago to take the model international. And then we work also extensively with partners in the Middle East and North Africa, and they're working on some very challenging geographies, and we're partnering with them in the sub-Saharan parts of the world, which are very challenging to deliver food banking practices. We have about 265 food banks directly in our network, and we believe we touch 8.5 million lives. And the U.S. food banking system is not part of our network, but they have always been on our board of directors, and we collaborate extensively with them. So when I give you data, it doesn't include what's happening in the U.S. Here's a list of some of the countries that we're active in, and behind the scenes there's always probably 5 or 10 that we're looking at to see if they have the wherewithal and the ability. Hunger exists everywhere, so that's the easy part. Then you have to ration your resources to make sure that you have the best chance for success, because they're very labor-intensive exercises. Nestle has been very involved in food banking in the U.S. since the 1970s, and in Europe since the 1980s. And here are a number of countries where we work together, and the relationship is not only for surplus product. And again, no food manufacturer that's going to be in business for a long time is in the business of producing extra food. There are just the vagaries of the supply chain channel, and the challenges of moving quickly in the supply chain are what caused the surplus in the system. And we're there to be the traffic cop, in essence, to take excess and move it to hungry people. So a number of countries where we're active together, and to give you a sense for the volume, in 2014, about 4.3 million kilograms were donated across the network by Nestle. And if you would look at the totals in the U.S., which is a very substantial and mature market for obvious reasons, that would be 15.7 million in aggregate. So quite a substantial and generous degree of collaboration. Nestle's also been involved in providing funding for startup of organizations, and also work with us as an example in South Africa to make food banking a reality by bringing intellectual capital to bear and help us think through those issues when we were developing food banking in South Africa. We're working on a very significant and exciting project together, and it's, I know a toolkit was mentioned a little bit earlier. We have had the benefit of a wonderful relationship for a long time in the UK with FareShare, which is our network partner that does a wonderful job in food banking across the UK with 18 depots. And Nestle have been very close there. Best practices have been established, a protocol exists, and really the right way to work together to make sure that all of the aspects of the donation work and meet both parties' objectives. We're in the process of updating that. We're serving kind of to bring our technical resources to bear. And the goal there is to take that and use that as a toolkit to increase the amount that we're doing in some countries. It wouldn't be surprising to you that in some of these countries, like a Guatemala and a Paraguay, you know, there's a very small level of activity. They're just small countries, and Nestle may or may not even manufacture a product there. It might be repped by a third party. So in some of these, about 7 or 8 of these, they're very consequential volume, and our goal is to be greedy, to help the needy, and in so doing, we would like every morsel. We're not encouraging Nestle to make extra product beyond what they can sell, but if it does exist, the hierarchy of food recovery really should be, we believe strongly, that it should be to feed people, and secondarily it should be available for animal feed or bio, bio-type powering issues. But first and best use, we think, is to find the hungry stomach. So we're excited about this protocol and think that it's going to be very beneficial for both of us as we work together to eliminate any surplus. Hunger is an issue that many people have commented on. We could talk for hours about that. We don't have that amount of time. But I like to point out that the beauty, I think, or of the model of food banking really is it serves two masters. It ethically provides food for hungry people, and at the same time, there's a very corrosive nature of food loss, which we've talked about a little bit, but it really quickly turns into methane in a landfill environment. And the statistics about the issues that causes from a greenhouse gas perspective are quite well known. And so it's kind of virtuous in that sense. It just makes sense. So we believe that the toolkit is an exciting way to continue our collaboration, hopefully recover what's ever possible elsewhere in the world. And you've heard several times mentioned today the commitment to reduce food loss and waste, which was recently articulated by Nestle as one of the sustainable objectives that they're very focused on and committed to. And we think what we're doing aligns quite nicely with that, and are very excited about it. And I think that I will leave things there for questions, and I know we're going to cover some additional questions in our Q&A session. But thank you.